Hi, everyone. We often talk about people who have been there, done that. And today I have one such person with me who's been there, done more than what one can even envisage. So I'd like to invite Ravi today to join me for my Potential Market Fit series. Welcome, Ravi, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Shalini, it's good to be finally in conversation.
Yes, yes, absolutely. This one I've been waiting for really long, so I'm so glad I could finally get you on. So, So, Ravi, tell me, do you think you've been there, done it all?
No. Honestly, I think that, I'm just to calibrate your listeners, I'm 59 years old and I wake up most mornings or nearly every morning feeling like everything I've done before is just preparation for what I am to now really do. So I feel like my most important work still lies ahead, and some of the most interesting adventures are still ahead rather than in the rearview mirror. So yeah, I don't feel like I've been there or done that yet.
Uh, but a lot of people, would die to have a career like yours, right? And so, they this is the ideal. You're like the poster child for success, like a successful career, right? But do you consider yourself as a successful person? And what is your metrics for defining a successful person?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. And in my book, which I hope many of you will pick up, I spend a whole lot of time unpacking exactly that question, which I think is a really important central question. And the thing about success is you can be successful, you can be seen as successful, and you can feel successful, and the three turn out to be quite different. And what is most important and often the most elusive is this feeling of being successful, and which is why you'll
Which
see
is
a lot of very
intrinsic. Which is
it's
intrinsic.
it's something you have to develop. It is intrinsic, exactly. And it doesn't matter what you have done or haven't done. And there are a lot of people who haven't accomplished much, but they're happy. They feel successful because of who they are and their relationship with the world. And conversely, you'll see a lot of very accomplished people still chasing their tails, feeling just really, really miserable that they haven't been successful enough. I think that I am finally at a point where I feel reasonably successful, but I must tell you, it took a long time in coming. Okay, it probably didn't, I hadn't internalized my success till just about a couple of years ago, which is quite late. And the reason I'm now able to feel successful is because I've changed what success means. So the answer to your question, whether you're successful or not, it depends on how you're measuring success. And in my case, more and more I've come to believe that success is really freedom in your head, and freedom in particular to choose how you spend your time, what you spend your time on, who you hang out with, and who you choose not to hang out with. Okay, I think it's freedom from, most of all, the need for approval, affirmation. Society must clap, or your those around you must applaud what you've done lately. Freedom from that need. These are, I think, the really important metrics of success. And by those metrics, I feel way more successful today than I did before.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was such an important point, because I think especially these days, because there is this glorified representation of what success means on social media, etc. Right? And there are people suffering from FOMO, which a lot of us talk about.
Oh.
Sorry, go on.
No, I said, wow, yeah, that's exactly right. The problem with success is it has it's relative. You can look at me and say, wow, Ravi, you're so successful. Look at all the wonderful things you've done. And then I can look at Satya Nadella or Nandan Nilekani and feel really bad because they've done even more. So there's no limit to this thing called success. And if you and you it's very easy to start comparing yourself with others and work yourself into a frenzy. The other problem with success is it's transient. Today you're famous and important. Tomorrow the world has forgotten you because it's celebrating the next new star. So, yeah, unless you start developing this internal definition of success, you
Yeah.
tend not to be very content or happy.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, yesterday on LinkedIn, I made a post on, this focused illusion. Okay. So, the illusion of what we think success will be, right? Say it could be getting the promotion or getting that funding or even buying a new car, right? But then actually, when you possess those things or when you get it, when you attain it,
It
you're
does.
probably not as happy as you think you would be.
Yeah, and now you fixate on the next thing that you don't have in your life, right?
Yeah.
This there's in psychology, this is called the missing tile theory of happiness. That you're always focused on the thing you're missing, and then the moment you achieve it or get it, you trivialize it and you're on to the next thing that you're missing. And that's a
Yeah.
prescription for feeling dissatisfied and unhappy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I mean, I called it the happiness trap. It's you're just going in circles looking for happiness, and it's got nothing to do with your success, and it's intrinsic, and it's a state of mind.
Yeah, and
So,
it's a good point when you reach that. So
yeah,
typically, what happens is you start out, achieving and seeking these things, and then it's perfectly fine to do that when you're in your 20s and 30s. But by the time you get to your 40s and you realize this is no longer giving me joy, is when you need to recalibrate, when you need to pivot.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. In your book, there are lots of questions on of reflection and introspection, right? Like, who am I? Why am I here? How much is enough? And what skills do I need to really keep up for the next 30, 40 years? And it also gets a little spiritual towards the end, right? So tell us a bit more, since we're talking about success and happiness. Tell us a bit more about how you have looked at these questions from your book point of view.
Well, thank you for asking that question because I think it's also another really important one. I think like a lot of high achievers, many of whom may be tuning into your program, I spent about 45 years of my life chasing success because I believed that success would lead to happiness. If you think about it, when we are young, that's how you're brought up. You achieve something, parents clap, the people love you more, the teacher's happy, and then that becomes addictive. And so you do more and more of that. When you get your first job, once again, you're conditioned to accomplish things because your manager rewards you, the company rewards you with promotion, recognition, increases, and so forth. And so you pretty much get hooked onto it like a drug. And at some point, though, you realize, and typically this again happens in your midlife, which is about 40, 45, that you're on a treadmill and you're pedaling harder and harder or running harder and harder, and it no longer gives you joy. And that happened to me. And then I had to figure out, okay, if this theory of happiness is not working, what what is a better theory? And I came to three fundamental conclusions, Shalini, which I think are important. I think they're universal. And the first is to realize that happiness doesn't actually depend on what you have or don't have. It is actually a quality that psychologists call synthetic. It is made up by your mind. And so we can all think about people who have nothing in life, nothing. They're so poor that, just on living on the edge, and yet they're gloriously happy. I know, there's a lady who sells flowers outside my house in Koramangala who's like that. On the other hand, we also know people who have so much to be grateful for, so much to be happy about, and they're miserable. Okay. So, what you have to realize is this is a state of mind. And therefore, the key is to start controlling your mind and mostly learning to dissociate from your thoughts and seeing your thoughts most as a set of clouds that go across the sky. And some of them are dark thoughts, some of them are light thoughts. But whatever happens, your mood and your how you feel can't go up and down basis that. The second thing I learned is the more you obsess about yourself and being happy, the more elusive it gets. The more you lose yourself in something, the more likely you are to be happy. And you can lose yourself in so many things. You can lose yourself in bringing up a child. You can lose yourself in love. You can lose yourself playing a game of tennis, which is very intense. You can lose yourself building a new venture. It doesn't matter. The key thing is to stop obsessing about yourself. Okay. And that's the second one. The final thing I would say is life is going to take its own course. And in the book, I quote this wonderful, wonderful guy, Irfan Khan, the late actor. And as he's dying, people say, "How are you able to smile so much?" And he says, "Life is under no obligation to give me what I expect." Okay. So learning to make your best effort, strive towards your goals, but accepting things that happen to you is a very important quality. And that's why it sounds like nearly spiritual. But I think these are all the ingredients of success. And Buddhists have a phrase for this. They say, wanting what you have rather than having what you want is the key to happiness.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I've also felt off late, right? When you talk about it, I'm talking about my book as well, and all of these learnings, right? I think there's this realization for some at 45, and maybe there is this realization at 25 for few, right?
Lucky.
And I just no, but the funny thing is when you have a realization at 25, a lot of people of course, choose not to run the rat race and so on, right? And I keep wondering, how does one define their career then, right? And I think because you have worked hard, you got your degree, and then you got to reinvent yourself, but then there is so much of anxiousness around, what now that I have no materialistic aspirations, right? And but yeah, I guess it's a journey that one needs to undergo for themselves to be able to absorb and appreciate what your book has to say, right? Because you
Yeah.
have to be there to experience that.
I think again you're making an important point. I when my generation was growing up, um, there were very, very few defined specific pathways to success. You had to be an engineer, you had to be a doctor, or you had to be a chartered accountant, or maybe a scientist, and that's all that was acceptable. Okay, and then everything else was sort of second tier or third tier. The beautiful thing about today is that there are infinite definitions of success and many, many pathways to success. So you can be a comedian. If you're good at it, you're successful. You can be a social media influencer, whatever that means. Okay, but that's a way to be successful. So the good news is you can do a lot of different things. The bad news is you have to figure out your choice now amongst a myriad of choices. And the trick is, as I say in my book, do the best you can with what you're good at. Okay, so the trick is to find out what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and then really, really, really concentrate on that.
So speaking about discovering your career, right? So say once it's someone right out of college, right? Um, there's so many things happening out there from corporate to startups, and as you said, the world is your oyster. You can pick and choose anything that you want to be, and sometimes, when too many choices also leaves you paralyzed, right? You can't make that decision and move forward. So how does one very effectively think about career or building your career lifestyle, because we've never thought about how do we build our work lifestyle or career lifestyle, right? So how does one look at achieving their potential market fit or build for their
Exactly.
career lifestyle?
I think that's a good metaphor to use, product market fit. So, how do you find a path that fits you? And the only way I know how to do that is through a process of discovery. You try different things, and through those trial and error experiments, you get feedback on what you enjoy, what you're good at, and you begin to go down that path. So I started out studying engineering and becoming an engineer because that was the obvious thing to do. But very honestly, fairly early in IIT, I realized I don't really enjoy engineering, and nor am I very good at it compared to a lot of my peers who was very, very good. But I was very competitive. And so I studied really hard, three times as hard to do well. But it wasn't natural. Okay. And I knew that. So I said, as quickly as possible, I should figure out my real calling because the world doesn't need another frustrated engineer. Okay. It needs a lot more people who are enjoying what they do and making the world more beautiful. Okay. So, luckily for me, I realized that my calling was engineering management, which is I liked running projects, I like leading people, I was very good at those things. So, but in an engineering context, but I wasn't the one who was actually designing things and making things. And so I moved down that path. And that worked really well for a while. And then eventually I got to a point where I realized even this bores me. But the whole point is this is not static. It's dynamic over as you grow in life. Your interests change, your personality changes, your skills, new skills develop. And so it's a constant shifting product market fit. And
Yeah.
so every now and then, in my case, every decade of my life, I had to reinvent myself to find a better fit, a new fit. So, this is the way I would suggest going about it. And don't feel bad that it isn't obvious to you today what you need to do. That
Yeah.
state of confusion is something you should welcome because it's an opportunity to experiment until you until you get it. Okay. And then you'll get it for a few years and once again you'll be confused. And that's just the way it is. I think we have this foolish notion that it all comes together beautifully and then it stays that way for the rest of your life. That may happen in fairy tales, but the way it
I
happens
know.
in life.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a staunch believer of, that don't look at yourself as a finished product when you come out of college. Because that's when you feel more lost, right? Because you think you followed the blueprint for life and you're supposed to be successful. But then, in first 3 years, you're 25. I mean, first 3 years of your career, you're 25 and you're like, oh, this is not where I was supposed to be. And why am I still feeling like something is missing? And it's important that you view yourself as a work in progress, right? For the next 30 years or 40 years and not a finished product for a long
Well,
time.
as I said, I'm nearly 60 and I'm very much a work in progress. Okay. I think when you're a finished work is when you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully you don't want to be there anytime soon.
Yeah, yeah. And another interesting thing that you actually also said is, go crazy, go experiment multiple things, and it also sort of builds your character, right? It gives you that
Yeah.
unique perspective for your work just because you indulged in several activities itself, right? And there's this quote which says, several years from now, when you look back, you're probably going to regret all the things that you didn't do than the things that you actually did, right?
Yeah. Which
So
didn't work out.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly right.
yeah.
Exactly right. So take more risks and live life more fully. And I think you tend to look back that with a fair amount of satisfaction when you live life that way.
So Ravi, this brings me to my last question, and I want you to talk a bit about failure as a closing thought for all our listeners out there who are trying to make their place in this world, right? So I want you to talk something on failure to end this.
Yeah, see, I think the really important thing to realize is failure is a powerful word and a bad word. The only failure in life is giving up. Everything else is just a setback. And these setbacks are an essential part of how we learn and grow. I often use the metaphor of a child learning to walk, a toddler learning to walk. He or she gets up, falls, gets up, walks one step, falls, gets up, walks two, three steps, falls. Okay. If you see falling as failure, none of us would be walking. Okay. And so every time there's a setback, you stand up again, dust yourself, and try again. That is the spirit that is essential if you're going to have a fulfilling life, a life of some consequence and impact. And
Yeah.
as I said, failure is the only failure is quitting and giving up. And I think redefining success and failure in this manner is Very,
Yeah.
very simple. I also say, look, somebody reads my resume and say, wow, what a beautiful series of successes. A resume is actually a lie, okay? Because, or at least it is only a one-sided truth. You talk only about the things in your life that worked out. You don't talk about the 10 things that you tried that didn't work,
Yeah.
okay? And then the one thing that, and you focus on the one thing that did. So I think it's very, very important to realize that behind every success are a lot of setbacks, a lot of trial and error, a lot of failure, and that's just part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. I think ultimately people only remember your successes and not your failures. So so it's okay to keep failing, right? And I think the first two, three times when something doesn't work out your way, you don't care the fourth, fifth time, you're not afraid to try anymore. I think the initial fear of failure is what will hold you back. But if you're able to navigate through that, I think the next four, five times when you're trying something new, you really don't care if things work out or not.
Absolutely. For instance, I I took the joint entrance exam to IIT 3 times. Okay, I had to apply 2 times to get into Harvard Business School, etc., etc. I tried so many things over the years that didn't work out, but the resume focuses only on what eventually did. So I think it's very important for people to realize how life actually works.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, don't so resume is light. I think that's my favorite favorite one from today. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Ravi. This was fun, and I'm so glad that your book is doing really well. I'm sure it appeals to a lot of people. I've been seeing it in the airport everywhere.
Put it up there again in case readers and
Yeah.
listeners miss this. So here we are. But no, thank you, Shalini, for reaching out, inviting me to your program, and I enjoyed the conversation, and your questions were so thought provoking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you.